Welcome to the Amaria podcast. Today I have Jonathan Mozenter, and Amaria is the new matchmaking app I'm working on that uses typology to match people, video calls, and you get one match a day to really find the love of your life. So it's intimacy first, and this podcast is all about interviewing people who are in the intimacy space, relationship space, and typology space. And here I have Jonathan Mozenter, who knows a ton about integral theory and human design, Enneagram, tons of different things. So why don't you introduce yourself, John?
Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm Jonathan Mozenter. I'm a soul mentor, a mystic, transformational specialist. A little bit about me. I spent like over 30 years in the field of organizational development or change management. So I'm a specialist on helping people grow and evolve, companies, individuals, couples. Then I felt like I was meant to be an entrepreneur, and I was stuck in kind of a job. And I did a lot of inner work, and I studied Vajrayana Buddhism and integral theory. Integral theory changed my life. It helped me understand the patterns of life. So integral theory is about patterns of life. And then eventually the Vajrayana Buddhism, the meditation, connected me to my higher self. My higher self started to guide me, and it said, like, I asked the universe, like, there's a lot of problems in the world. How can I help? And they came back with, well, we want you. You really like to synthesize ideas. So it started teaching me to other things like how to be a chi practitioner, epi-energetics, which is about how to make the most of energy and information, conscious language, how to use psychedelics, and all of it in the spirit of growth, transformation. And you mentioned intimacy, because intimacy is the name of the game. Intimacy with life. And right now I specialize in 3 areas. I help people like in high performance, how to be the best selves. I work with couples and individuals and how to maximize relationships. And I help people get the most out of their psychedelic experiences. I help them prepare and integrate. And I'm really excited to be here today.
Cool. Excited to have you. Can you talk about integral theory and just explain it a bit? Because I feel like a lot of people don't know what it is. Like, if you were new to it, how would you explain it to like a child in simple words?
Okay, so integral theory is developed, at least the version that I'm deeply studying is invented by Ken Wilber. Ken Wilber's gift is to get really high up, like something called altitude, and look down and see the patterns of life. And he broke it down. He looked at like science, spirituality, Eastern stuff, Western stuff. He looked at it, all the domains. He did a lot of reading, and he came up with these deep patterns. He broke it down. Something called, he calls it aqual, is another name for it, which talks about, it's about holism. And aqual stands for, one of the distinctions is called quadrants. There's something called lines and levels. Typologies is one of the ones you're talking about. And so, he within that, you can use them to explain what's happening in detail. That's kind of a high level thing. It's called metaphysics.
What's like the main intention of integral theory?
I would say understanding. Holism is another one. It's being able to, with precision, to really understand. So here, let me put it this way. A lot of people are studied in like one area or 2 areas or 3, which Ken would call reductionism, and they view their whole world through these lenses. Okay. And what Ken says, like, if you really want to understand what's going on, you have to understand all the forces, the dynamics that are interplayed like right now. And because the more you understand, like, it's like life is like a game. It's like if you want to be a chess master, you really need to understand all the intricacies with precision. So he's got a set of distinctions that helps you do really deep analysis to understand what's going on right now, what forces. And then you could ask, well, which force is the high leverage that's really going to help you be successful in the thing that you want to succeed in?
So you mentioned a lot of different typologies too, like Enneagram and human design. Does
Uh-huh.
that overlap a lot with integral theory? Or I guess my
Yeah.
question is, why did you choose those? Is integral theory not enough? Or
Well,
Or are
no,
there other?
integral theory is a meta um, distinction. So within integral theory, one of the big ones is typologies. And then each of the
Okay.
typologies, so each one gets more and more precise. So, like, so Enneagram is going to give you different information than Gene Keys, or another one I really like called the 5 personality patterns. But each one has strengths and weaknesses. I've never seen one system that actually has everything. I think Ken's is really good as a really, like, if I were going to make like a puzzle of life, Ken's is really good as an outline, like the borders, but it doesn't. In order to get all the details in the middle of the puzzle, you need other things. Um, so
Okay.
I call
What
myself a systems of systems master or geek. I don't know. That's what I like to do, is look at different systems and kind of put them together. That's fun for
Yeah, I
me.
love that too. Yeah, that's why I'm building Amarea because it's
Nice.
systems, it's integral, has all these topologies together to make the perfect match. One thing I like about topology is like you can kind of read people once you know Enneagram or human design. You're like, okay, that person's a 5, definitely. Or, that person has their emotional center defined, perhaps. Can you do the same thing with integral theory? Would that help you in relationship in that way? It's like, oh, this person's a match based on X, Y, and Z in integral theory.
Um, well, I mean, I think integral theory, I'm getting to start with something. One of the distinctions I think is really important in integral theory and in relationships and making matches, which is this idea of lines and levels. There's a guy named Howard Gardner who talked about multiple intelligences. And so a lot of people just think intelligence is IQ or something like that, but really every capacity we have is around a certain kind of ability. And so, like, I think one of the important things, like, that you want to look for in relationships in yourself is understand which capacities really succeed in having relationships, right? Like self-awareness is one, right? How well do you know yourself? Communication skills is another one. And when you get into romance, like courting is a whole capacity. um how do you deal with conflict? I think that's a big one, probably one of the biggest ones, because any relationship, there's eventually going to be conflict, and you want to be with somebody who has good conflict resolution skills. So I think somebody to really, when you're thinking about getting yourself ready for being in a relationship or a partner, you want to understand, well, are they good at these certain things? Or are they at least willing to open? Openness is a really important line of development. I mean, unless you're looking for someone, unless you're a fundamentalist who wants someone who has the exact same ideas. But in my ideal relationship, I'm looking for continuous improvement and growth. And so that would be something I value. Um,
Is there a way to know before you get into a relationship how open this partner is, how good they are at resolving conflict, or all these things?
I mean, you would ask a lot of good questions. You can test people, like on first dates or second dates, see how they handle things. I mean, you would just ask some people. Openness is just like, how do you feel about these different things? Like, are they rigid? One of the most important things I find in a relationship is about something about like triggers or defense patterns, and like how some people have habits of like getting really defensive really fast, and then you can't really have a deep conversation. Like, it just stops everything. So like, I value somebody who is aware of their triggers, or at least willing to be, and willing to be like, hey, let's calm down before we talk about anything. One of the best relationship advice I got was from another teacher, Donnie Epstein, in epienergetics. Actually, he just taught me a distinction about energy levels. So you never want to have a conflict conversation unless you're in a really, both people are in a good energy state, because at higher energy states, people can consider multiple perspectives. And when people are really low energy, they retract, and then they tend to not be very open. So that's a key one for relationships. That's a keeper. It's one of the best tips I could give anyone in the beginning of a relationship, is to track energy levels and only have certain kind of conversations when both people are in a high energy state.
Interesting. You brought up a few things that are somewhat new to me. Obviously, I was in your course, so I know some of them, but like defense patterns, and levels of energy. Uh, is there some kind of test out there that someone can know what their defense pattern is, or what level of energy they're in, so they can look at someone else and like, oh, okay, this person's a mismatch for my energy level based on what I know about myself.
Okay, let's those are two different questions. So let's do one at a time. So energy levels, I the a great model is, first off, we all have different energy levels. So there's like, well, here's a great system to do it, like energy poor, where you just have no energy, you feel helpless. Low neutral is kind of like when someone's like kind of bitching, they're a victim in life. They're complaining all the time. Neutral is they're kind of like, everything's like okay. And then there's like high neutral, where you got a lot of different ideas. And then like energy rich, where you're like really in a flow state and you're really open, and so we're all in these different energy levels. Now, some people might stay at certain ones more than others, but you can do things to get in to change your energy state. If you exercise more, if you eat right, you have a stimulant, you have a good meditation practice, you do chi. There's a lot of different techniques to kind of raise your energy. So yeah, it's good to like be familiar with the different energy states, and then if both you and your partner would have to have a shared language around that, and be able to recognize when each of them. When I was in my last relationship, that was a rule we agreed on. We're not going to have a fight or just a big in-depth discussion unless we were both high neutral or higher. So that's a thing. That's one of the things is I teach people is how to sustain their energy states at higher levels. And people have different patterns that you can learn, so that you can learn what puts you in a high energy state and what drops you. Um, and that's something that I learned also, and I teach people. And as far as defense patterns, my favorite one, I would say the first one would be the 5 personality patterns. I think is the best one. It breaks them down into 5 by Stephen Kessler. It's a book people can read. It's like basically his premise is it's all research based, and so basically what he found out is that children from ages 0 to 6 test out at different ages these different ways of coping. Like a child, like they're when they're in distress, they look for their parents, but when the parents aren't around, they got to self-manage, and so they pick up a strategy. Like some people go into their head, it's called a leaving pattern, and they think, or they like to leave the scene. Some people get really codependent, it's called a merging pattern, where they look for someone else to solve their needs. Some people just take it, it's called an enduring pattern. They just sit there and they take it all, like, oh, I'll just outlast this. Some people get really aggressive, they want to fight, they want to argue. And then some people develop rules, like really hard rules. And so those are the 5 primordial defense patterns. And most people have a primary and a secondary. And it's really good to be aware of what yours are and your partners are. I would say once you're in a relationship, ideally you would want to have a partner you help each other become aware of when you're in a defense pattern and not, and just be like, hey, I think you're doing, because if you're in a defense pattern, that means your energy's dropped and you're more in a survival piece, and you're not really in a multiple perspectives kind of space where you can resolve conflict. So a great tip for couples who want to grow together successfully and have what I call a generative relationship, where it keeps flowing, where there's more creativity, more joy, more love, is to be able to have a self-awareness for each other, like help each other be aware of, like, hey, I think you're in that pattern, and then maybe have code words and relationship and skills to say, like, okay, let's take a time out, or and anyways, this is stuff that I teach my clients, is how they can and then eventually how to catch it quicker and quicker, because the quicker you catch the defense pattern, the better you can get into a different energy state where you're going to be more productive.
Now, are these defense patterns, can they be incompatible, or is it more like an awareness to it? It's like, oh, you have a completely different defense pattern than me. Let's be aware of that. It doesn't mean we're incompatible. It just means that,
Yeah.
oh, I know how to deal with you. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, they're all like strategies. So none of them are inherently bad, but what's suboptimal about them is you get triggered and you go automatically to the one of them. It's not bad to be aggressive. It's not bad to leave, endure, or look for other people. You want to be in choice. someone in power has choice. So that we're looking about the conditioning that you had from childhood that makes it like a knee-jerk automatic thing, so um, that you can't, there's no choice. You just there. So you want to get from a place of like, oh, I don't have to just do that. I have a zillion different options here. But yeah, as far as compatibility, it has nothing to do with this one's going to be more compatible with that. It's more about being a self-awareness. But relationships are an amazing place for you to work on that and grow together. I mean, it can be a really bonding and intimate thing for a couple. And really, I would say that a lot of the relationships struggle because they caught in these loops. You probably heard of like relationships or seen them where they get caught in these like patterns. And what if they had a way out of those patterns? And that's kind of what I teach people is how to get out of those patterns and quickly and get into more generative patterns.
So how do you figure out what your defense pattern is?
Yeah, you would read the book and you'd intimately know what the five are, and then you'd watch yourself. What do you do when you're under? Yeah, it's just like what do you do when you're under stress? Like, I mean, I could do it with you right now if you want. What you want to do? Like, it's like, what do you do? What do you do when you're stressed out? Yeah,
I think I get in my head when I'm stressed.
yeah.
I pop in my head.
So probably a leaving pattern.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Leaving
um,
pattern. Yeah.
yeah.
So is that natural? Is that can that be changed? Is it like trauma,
Sure.
or is it just how I am? Is it not good or bad?
Yeah, no, it can be changed. Anything can be changed. It's a tendency. So I'll bring in a distinction from my meditation. There's a lot of people that in they habitually identify with the pattern because it's about safety. So you want to shift your basis of operation to being now, or being like the field of awareness or the witness, something that's not that. That's like, if I said like, who am I? Well, like right now, well, I'm the space. I'm the space to which Matt and I are talking. I'm just witnessing. I'm not and everything that self arises, including my instinct to leave, because leaving pattern is my first pattern. I'm a leaving aggressive, maybe with so what I tend to do is like you, I tend to go to my head and try and work it out, or go into my imagination. And then my secondary pattern would be to like argue. um, and sometimes I'll do them in combination. Like if I'm not around anyone and something's bothering me and unresolved, I'll go into my head and I'll argue with them in my head until I realize, oh my God, that's a waste of time. um, but yeah, it's to know. So it's a game of self-awareness, a game of intimacy. Intimacy is the name of the game, not just in couples, but in life. I'll break it down to you. I have a philosophy. I call it the three marriages. If you want to really crush it in life, there's three areas you want to be super intimate with. One is how do you relate with other people? So what are the patterns to master communication, whether it's with a romantic partner, a friend, a coworker, stranger? Like there are actually known ways of communication to master it. So you want to know your own style and what are the best practices. The second one is about parts. We all have different parts in our brain and our consciousness, and so you want to start to distinguish what those different parts. A lot of times, there's a lot of conflict in our parts, and we have all these subtle parts. Are almost like one way to describe it is like rules that you created as a child about how to handle life, and they're operating in the subconscious. And when you make them conscious, then you can start to change them. And then the third one is the marriage. So this is the marriage of the parts, the marriage with other people. Then the last one's marriage with life or God. Like, what is this? Life has patterns and rhythms. And we talked about integral theory. Integral theory is one of the better metaphysical maps that show people everything's about alignment. If you align with the best practices of life, then your life flows a lot easier. And so that's kind of what I help people is to understand what those patterns are, and so they can align with them and have more flow in their life.
Let's say you're a new person. You never heard of
Mm.
any of this stuff you're talking about.
Yeah.
Enneagram, human design, which one do you think they should start off first? What's like the most important one
Oh, well,
for beginners?
for beginners, well, I'm going to answer it two things. I mean, when I'm talking to someone, I always kind of assess like, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, what's the goal? Because each one has a little bit of a different specialty. Um,
Let's
but
say for relationships, they want to look for their partner.
for
Um,
relationships, okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know, something said like something simple. I think for a relationship, I'm getting Enneagrams pretty powerful because it's there's 9 different types, and each type has strengths and weaknesses, and it shows you like what you do when you need when you're in a trouble spot. Where do you need to go, and it helps you identify with it. And it's not only good for your own self-awareness, it can start understanding other types, and it also brings a lot of empathy and compassion. It's like, hey, now everyone's hardwired like me. So I think that one's uh, has enough balance of really depth and not too overwhelming. I think integral three is really powerful. It can be dense. There's a lot to it. So I think it's really powerful. But Enneagram's a little bit simple, and I think if you're new, you want to get intimate with yourself and start getting with someone else. I think that's a good one because it handles a lot of different dynamics.
What do you think about attachment systems? I heard you not mention it. I'm surprised.
Yeah, attachment systems are super important. Absolutely. You mean the 4 main ones like secure attachment,
Right.
avoidant, anxious or anxious slash avoidant? Yeah, very
Yeah.
important to know what your system is. That attachment systems will help you understand like what you do in relationship, and that's a great conversation to have in relationships. Like what do you tend to do, and then like how can you help each other manage it? And then how can you manage it within yourself is another level of importance. I mean, the 5 love languages is another good one for relationships. Have you heard of that one?
There's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah. There's a
lot.
lot.
Those are good. I mean, I think attachment systems of 5 love languages are, simpler. I mean, I think here's what I would say about them. Alone, they're a self-awareness tool, but like what I would do to bring where I bring we're talking about systems of systems. Like how do you talk about that like in a way that both people are going to get their needs met? Because that's a process. I'm a process expert. That's what change management is. Studied something like process consultation. So it's like one of the things I think if you want to really crush it in relationships, you're going to want to have good process skills, good relationship skills. Like we talked about the lines of development; those are really important. Like first off, like here's a really simple technique for all relationships. Like owning your truth is yours. Very basic, but very important. Like you can really trigger someone when you say, like, this is the truth. Da, 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 da. So instead, it's like, okay, this is how I'm experiencing life right now. This is my truth. I don't know it's true for you. Um, so like for example, in organizational development, I learned that there's 4 things going on in every conversation, and I have one person has access to 2 of them, the other person has access to the other 2. So they're very simple but powerful. Like right now, I only know what my intentions are and how you are coming across to me. I don't have access to how your intentions, unless you explicitly say them, or how I'm coming across to you. So you want one great communication tool is to start to open it up. Be like, okay, this is how you're coming across to me. What is your intention? I don't know if how you're coming across and your intentions are the same. So you can start opening up the conversation without, when you start to think my truth is the only truth, that's when a lot of problems happen because there's no room for openness. There's no room for dialogue and conversation. So that's a really good tip for having great relationships.
Do you have a good communication tool you can recommend?
A good communication tool. I mean, other than the one I just mentioned. Yeah, let's see. Let me kind of sit on that. I don't really think about it in tools. I think about more
Just
in just like
self-awareness.
well, no, I mean, I already named some. First of all, own your own truth. Inquiry. Let's get into like rather than coming up with a model that somebody can go look it up, let's get into distinctions. So some of the ones I already meant is like own your own truth. Realize that you don't necessarily know what's going on with the other person. You don't know how the other person is coming across. So a lot of questions. I'm getting like I would here's something that I created. I call it energy contracts. So if you want to really enhance your communication, here's a very simple way of energy contract you could do. Like you agree, they're almost like agreements for the conversation and communication. Let's say like I'm going to just make it really simple. Let's agree to have multiple perspectives. That there isn't one truth. There's your truth. There's the other person's truth. There might be even a higher truth. And so one thing is that, and then compassion. Like, I'm going to take the time to really understand why you believe what you believe, and vice versa. So both people are going to do that, and then like win-win solutions. Let's get creative and be like, look, I care about you. I want this to be flowy and generative. Let's get all the information about how we're both feeling. Let's get in tune with what we both want, and then get creative. Let's do a little bit divergence, and then find a solution where we're both crushing it at once. It's a very simple protocol, but if you have good agreements and good protocols, your conversations, communication skills are going to flow a lot better.
How do you start a conversation like this? You have a new partner, maybe she doesn't know about all these systems and stuff. Like, how did you start it? You said you had a partner which you had an agreement of talking about your what defense patterns.
Uh-huh.
How did you start that conversation with that partner?
Well, I don't think you start off with defense patterns, but I think if you're looking for someone like that, you could start off asking uh, like what, like, yeah, like, what are you interested in? First, I think first you gotta have, let's just, like, if it's a first date, you gotta have, like, do you even like this person? Is there any flow? Is there chemistry? I think, I'm not sure that getting into conflict resolution right away. I mean, you could ask them, like, how do you resolve conflict? Or, um, just notice like what they do, or if they start to get really, um, defensive or really kind of argumentative, like, you could just be like, hey, I see you have a strong opinion on that. Are you open to other perspectives? Are you opening to owning your truth? You can, it's like modeling is one good way. Like, you could just kind of be it. Or, as far as uh, like the energy, distinctions, you could be like, look, I find it helpful if we're going to have a more complicated conversation or something with a lot of conflict, I prefer that we're both in a good place, because otherwise, it's my experience, it doesn't go well. Are you open to that an agreement? You kind of suggest these things, um so, be the change, and see if they're open to it.
Yeah, I've heard a few good things when you were talking, like only your truth. I heard that a lot. Like, oh, this is how I'm feeling. And also reflecting back to your partner is like, okay, here's what I'm feeling. What do you feel? What do you think about that? And I think that part is really important too, because it really brings her into the conversation too.
Hmm. I
Because
think mirroring
communication
is good
skills are
too. Is
so
like,
key.
this is what I heard. Like, can you
Yeah,
feedback what
yeah,
I
here's
heard?
what
Because
I heard.
sometimes you splurt stuff out, and what they heard isn't like what you said, and then you got to work through that. So that's another really important tip, is to just mirroring.
Yeah, it goes back to what you said. You don't know what her intentions are. You only know what yours is, what they're saying. Then
Yeah, and
the
people,
second one.
exactly. And people want to
Yeah,
be seen and heard. So that's why
yeah,
sometimes it's
exactly.
good to, like, okay, pause. I want to hear your perspective on things. Then the other person goes back, wait, before we even continue, let me make sure I heard it accurately. And then the person describes it back in their own words. So then the person feels like, yeah, they heard me. Because sometimes the people will just get like, this person isn't even hearing me. They're not listening, because they're always like trying to win the argument rather than, at least acknowledge what the
Mhm.
other person said. So that's always another important process step.
Yeah, and all this aside too, I think you also have to understand the opposite genders, just the opposite gender in general. Like, read about female psychology, male psychology, like, because we're so different. It's like women have a problem, men tend to want to solve their problem, and men like that. But like, what a lot of women want is like, oh, like, I want to hug you. Like, how does it feel? Sometimes they want you to solve the problem, of course, but usually it's more like, okay, like they want to feel better. And like men don't get that. Right?
Yeah, I think there's some tendency with men to fix things. I mean, yeah, sometimes women can fix things too. I don't think I'd make it all about gender. I mean, there are gender differences, but I think the protocols I'm suggesting are just universally good no matter which gender you are. Like, oh, it's good to be heard and seen no matter which one. It's good to own your truth no matter what your gender is. Permissions too, like consent is a big thing. Like you could, like before you go to solve someone's problem, are you open to some feedback? That's always a good
Yeah.
thing too, because then if they say yes, they're going to be more receiving. If you try and fix them and then they think, oh, they think I'm a problem or something, and then you have permission, that can escalate them into a defense pattern, a trigger system. So you want to keep people out of their defense patterns as much as possible. Um, and sometimes
Yeah.
pausing, like this word pause for peace has come up. Another good tip is like, hey, if things are getting a little bit hot, it's like, let's just take a moment and pause before we continue, and um, you can even ask, not everyone has this capacity, but like, what's going on in the group right now, or what's going on between us? Let's not just like, because you can get so caught up in what's going on with you don't, because there's what's going on with one person, so what's going on with the other person, and then there's what's going on within the group, or if it's two people, that's a group, right? So you sometimes can pause, like, what's going on right now in the dynamic of the group, and shifting it, and that can then bring like a meta awareness. So that I think that's another technique that will enhance communications.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it's really important to just go meta in general. And what these typology and tools do, it
Yep.
kind of helps you go meta. It really teaches you about yourself, first of all, but also it's like, oh, okay, my attachment pattern could be your attachment pattern. But if you don't have that model in your mind, it's like you're not aware of it.
Yeah.
So it's just a bit more difficult.
Well, I think also one of the most important things about the meta things is it depersonalizes it. Like a lot of people are like so worried about being good, and trying to avoid being bad or wrong. People don't realize that these are universal patterns that affect us all, and we all basically, based on the defense patterns you pick, because you have a way of what's called particularizing, a way of like particularizing just means like you hyper focus on it. So like if you have a leaving pattern, then you develop a strong muscle to go into your head. So leaving pattern people, each pattern has superpowers. So leaving pattern tend to be more intellectual, sometimes have more imagination, creativity, more of subtle awareness, but also then they're disembodied and they can be spacey, and sometimes so each one has strengths and weaknesses, and so it's like it's not personal. Everyone does it. So when we get to a place where it's like, hey, it's not so personal. It's just a pattern, and we recognize it, and everybody has a pattern or patterns, that the archetypes. Then I think we chill out a little bit, because I think the species is all on guard. Everyone's trying to be right and look good, and instead of like chilling out, it's like, hey, dude, we all got strengths and weaknesses. Relax. That's how life is. Yeah.
So when you trigger your partner's defense pattern, what do you
Mhm.
do? Is that when you pause and then, okay, let's calm down a bit and then come back
Yeah.
and some thoughts
Well,
about what just happened?
I mean, let's go two different scenarios. If you haven't had the conversation where that's even a thing, then I would maybe take some space, like, or just disrupt the pattern by like, don't feed it. The most common thing is one person gets in a defense pattern, and then it triggers the other person's defense pattern, and it becomes like a whole dynamic. So you want to disrupt it. Just kind of like pause, maybe even be like, hey, you look upset, or like name things, or like, hey, let's just take a moment and reset the energies in the space. This feels like an important moment, important conversation. I feel like things are starting to spiral in a way that's not generative. And I want to pause. Are you okay with that? Can we just take a moment, pause, and then reset, and or like take some breaths? You know, and so you want to get calm. And then if you are in a relationship, then you could set up protocols, like maybe get like a hand signal, like, hey, I think you're doing that thing right now. And then the person can be like, oh, okay, maybe, because you want to increase each other's self-awareness for their own patterns. And so that you can really do that like a long-term relationship with someone you're with a lot. You can really increase your awareness, because your partner can help you see it. But you're gonna want to have to get some agreements on how that's handled. Um, but so, you could just be like, hey, if one of us thinks we're dropping into a defense pattern, maybe we just take a timeout, or we have a hand signal. It's like there are things you can do to help disrupt going into like a dysfunctional, or just conversations that just blah, 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 or two people are just yelling at each other, nothing really positive is happening. You know,
Yeah. Or if you just know the Enneagram, it's like, oh, you're triggering my bad side of the five, which is um um which is essentially a defense pattern when you go in your head. Like I'm retreating. Usually fives retreat when they're I don't know if Enneagram actually talks about defense patterns, but there's unhealthy fives and healthy fives, right? Like, oh, I'm
yeah,
unhealthy now. Perhaps that's a defense pattern, right?
right,
If you
right.
just know the Enneagram, you can kind of be aware of it.
Yeah, I think five, I can, yeah, I mean, there's
Five is the
something like
investigator.
like you go to a different number when you're aggressive. I think five connects to seven and
All right,
eight, if
yeah,
I
you're right,
remember.
yeah.
Yeah, so
So you
yeah,
can be aware of
so
that.
for example, I'm an Enneagram 7. So I'll just talk about the one I know the highest. So for example, um when I uh when I really want to like what is it go like so if I get really anxious and scattered, sometimes it's good for me to go to five and see things as neutral and be like, okay, which of these is actually true? So that would be like a healthier way of doing it. Like sevens are I mean, we haven't even really talked to your audience about what the Enneagram really is. So we're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit here. But for
That's
those
true.
for those who don't know what the Enneagram is, there's 9 typologies, and everybody has like a primary and then what's called a wing, and and each number represents like a way of being. So it is about defense patterns because like sevens um, basically, which avoid feeling like difficulties by thinking about a lot of different things. And also in the Enneagram, they have the 3 centers. There's like a head center. So 3 of the numbers are primarily in the head. 3 of the numbers are more intuitive, and 3 of the numbers are more heart based. And we all have connections to all of them, but some of us have tendencies in the different ones. And the goal is to get into wholeness. So basically, like I was saying before, we all, because of our childhood upbringing, have developed these patterns. But as we get older and we separate from the patterns, we can actually, because we all have all the numbers in us, we could develop to have like a really advanced person would have access to all 9 and choose the one that's most contextually appropriate. But that's a process, and it starts by knowing your own tendencies and then mastering that. Uh, so it's as you said, it's a self-awareness tool. And there are lots of free online tests. You could just type in
Yeah.
free online Enneagram tests. Maybe you could
So
put
I guess
something
one
in
way,
the link or something in the podcast, or whatever.
yeah, I'll put the book to the five personality test book, five personality book in the
Yeah.
link also. I think that's really important. But you can probably say that one of the big purposes of the topologies is knowing your defense patterns, right? Because you could, like every topology would show you your defense pattern, quote unquote, in a different way than the book, of course. Like attachment systems, like avoidance, their defense pattern is to run away when intimacy,
Yeah.
when they start getting intimate, right? Anxious
Right.
is the opposite, right? And similar to the rest, just
Well,
different
Hank just
defense
starts getting really
patterns,
worried and like, so yeah.
right?
Um,
So
and they
it's
try and
being
get
aware of it.
close.
It's like, okay, I can go meta now. And now it's like, okay, now since I'm meta, we can talk about it with communication tools.
Yeah. I mean, this is where really the right meditation tools can really help you get detached from patterns, because there's you do detachment and like embodiment. Some people think, oh, you only want to be embodied. Like, no, it's like a polarity. You want to sometimes get to be attached, disattached, so you can get like more perspectives, and other times you want to embody something so you can really feel it. So a dynamic person can flow between the two. But a lot of people don't have skills. Like I didn't know about all the, like I talked about one of the 3 marriages, these parts. I didn't know I had all these parts going on in my system until I started meditating. And there's a lot of different kinds of meditation. So concentration is good because that'll like slow you down, help you focus on one thing. It can also help you separate, give a little bit of space between your desire, like your choice between just getting into reactivity. So when you're more concentrated, you can be like, oh, maybe I don't need to do that. And then there's mindfulness, which is just kind of like awareness of like what you're doing. Oh, I tend to do this. Then there's something called like insight or emptiness practices, where you actually stop taking your thoughts, feelings, and sensations so seriously. A lot of times what happens is in childhood we form connections about when this happens I do this and this, and then like really hard rules, and with these emptiness practices allows you to see your impulses as like a maybe. It's like open. It's like, maybe I'll do that, maybe not. It's just energy. It changes it from being like a hardwired I'm going to do this to like, oh, this is an option. And so, what I learned from both meditation and my epi-energetics is that these different kinds of energies, like a lot of people talk about like this desire to have a peaceful mind, but why? Because one, there's like more ability to reflect and pause. Another thing is when you have this pause, you generate something what's called unbound or free energy, and the free energy can have a lot more creativity and more options, more versus when you're just responding to something in the past, like a set rule. There's no freedom. That's why they call in Buddhism, it's not a religion, it's a path to liberation. So it's practices to liberate yourself from these loops of that you always did from your childhood, and gives you freedom of choice. And that's all it is. People want to make it into something else, but at the core of it, it's about ending patterns that no longer serve. Now you can keep certain patterns if they're useful, keep them. But if they're not, this gives you a tool set to open up to new possibilities. And the typology systems are really good because they get really precise, and they help you identify. It's like sometimes when you read your typology, it's like, oh yeah, that's so me, and it just helps you see the patterns in yourself, and then you can use the self-awareness tools and the insight practices, the mindfulness to kind of then break the pattern. That's why I'm a systems guy, because I haven't seen one of these systems that gets the job done. It's really in concert where the real quantum leaps happen.
But it sounds like meditation or perhaps some awareness tool to get out of your fight or flight response and go meta so you can use these topology is really the foundation, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really important tool. Some people get there through, I'm getting meditation is foundational, but so is understanding of energy levels. Because if you're always like at low neutral or neutral, you can't, there's no change happening at those levels. You really want to get into a high energy state. The more energy you have, the more stuff possibilities and you can hold at once. Like if you're in a low energy state, you just don't have a lot of energy to do something different. Like when you're in a low energy state, all you got energy is to do, it's like sometimes I don't know if how other people relate this. Let's say I'm at a computer and I'm trying to get something done, and I just don't have energy, so I just sit there and I watch a video or play solitaire or something. But until my energy state's higher, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm in a productive state. Boom, boom. Now I can think. So really, mastery of different energy states is also super critical. And also to like a lot of people have a self-esteem issues because they associate their bad patterns with and they don't realize they think they are their bad patterns without realizing that the bad patterns are only them at a certain energy level. So if they have the ability to pop up their energy at a different level, then they'll see, oh, I'm not that. Like a lot of people will do psychedelics and they'll be like a different version of themselves. And it's like, yeah, it's showing you what's possible when you have more energy. So the goal is to have, I call it the linchpin is like, yeah, have a high energy and then align with the patterns that lead to success. So patterns are also really important too. And the typology systems show you a lot of your personal patterns. So, and I think some of the other things, like when we were talking about the protocols, like for good communication, those are other patterns. So you get in a high energy state, you follow the patterns, and boom, your life is more of a flows than feels like a struggle.
Where can people learn more about levels of energy? Is there a book? I know there's a book called Levels of
Yeah,
Energy, but I'm not sure if that's what you're
no,
referring
no.
to.
You can read The Seeker's Code by Donny Epstein. He talks about it there.
Okay, the Seeker's Code. Okay, I'll put that in the description as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I
The
mean,
five personality traits.
and there he also talks about something about it's another. He's got his own typology systems, but he says that some people are really much more energized when they come from the past, and some people are more energized when they come from the future. So, for example, he really helped me a lot because he helped me understand that I'm oriented towards the future. And so when I talk to my future self or I envision the future I'm here to do, I get a lot more energy. If I'm operating out, if I put my attention outside of myself, for me, there's a lot more energy here. But some people are the opposite. And some people, and so to really figure that out, which one is you, will help again, because energy is so important, is a really important distinction. And you can read about
Okay.
that in the Seeker's Code also.
So it's about recognizing when you're in a low energy state, and then knowing if you gain energy from the future or past, and then picture yourself in the future or the past, and that's how you gain energy.
Yeah,
And it's in the
yeah,
book.
exactly. A lot of times when I'm in like mental loops, my defense patterns, it's because I don't have enough energy. I'm like located in my head. And so when I get outside and I'm here with a lot of other people and people who are more future oriented like to be of service. So I tend to be in more energy when I'm in a mode of service, when I'm helping somebody else. And so that's another art. It's another archetype. It's a powerful one though, and it's one that not many people know about. And I think it's worth um, yeah, and he has something else, I think it's called the triad of change, which helps people know like there's three things. There's something called perception, um, structure, behavior, and we all do them, but it's like what order you do them will help you determine how much energy you have. And there'd be certain formulas for high energy. So for example, when I'm really thriving, I like to perceive first, like I ask like what's going on here? And then I figure out which structure. Structure is my second one. So I figure out which structure is going to match this one, and then I figure out how I want to behave, and that's my flow thing. But if I don't do it in that order, if I start behaving without doing the other two first, I tend to like not be a very high version of myself. So I help. That's another thing I help people figure out.
Cool. You mentioned meditation as being a foundational thing too. Where do people start with that?
Oh, wow, that's a big question. Um, I mean, I can only say that I've dabbled in a lot of different meditations. There's like Vipassana, but I think the most powerful meditation that I've discovered is Vajrayana Buddhism, and I'll say this why, because there's a real strong emphasis on helping people first off shift their basis of operation to being the field, the space, which I think is critical because if you don't start identifying as something other than your old stories, uh, then you're going to get stuck. And the other thing is they have these tools, the really powerful emptiness tools, which help you get off patterns. Because the main problem is that people are so hooked on patterns from the past, they just keep repeating them over and over day, Groundhog's Day, Groundhog Day, Groundhog Day. So the goal would be to really get off those patterns is to get them from a solid thing, a reified thing, like they're really attached where it's automatic, where it's like, okay, my thoughts, feelings, sensations, they're maybes. I don't have to react to them the way I did in the past, only if it serves me. And it brings this pause. So in my examination of the different tools, I find that one to be the most powerful. Um,
Okay. And where can people get started with that? Is there a website or something with a beginner meditation or something?
um, there are just a lot of different teachers. I teach that stuff. So you can go to mozenter.com. But yeah, I don't
Okay.
Mozenter. But yeah, I mean, one of my meditation teachers was John Churchill. He's really good. He's got like a 4-year program he's teaching. I forgot what his website is. He used to be Samadhi Integral or Planet Dharma. He's a good teacher. There's a lot of good Vajrayana teachers out there. That's the one that sticks off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's a big subject, meditation.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different. I could talk for a while. I mean, each meditation does. None of them are bad. It's just like there's concentration. So Vajrayana Buddha has concentration and mindfulness in it, but some of them like only do that. And concentration is good, but then there's limits to it because you're just
Mhm.
concentrated, but you're still in your old patterns. There's a pause, and mantra-based meditation. Okay, you're getting some space, your mind's getting quiet, which is good. It cultivates unbound energy, but it doesn't really get to some of the deeper stuff. I mean, they're all check in with yourself and see what you're called to.
Sure. So we're coming to the end here, but there's something in the beginning that you mentioned that I want to at least touch on.
Okay.
Sorry to huge subject, but you mentioned what's also important is something called lines and something else.
Oh,
Can
lines
you
and
just
levels.
levels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, lines
Yeah.
and
Can you
levels
explain
is,
that?
yeah. So a line is a better way to think is like a capacity. So like if I were gonna hire you for like a job, and I would do an assessment. It's like, okay, what capacities does this person need to be good at? And then at what level? Like, they need to have
Okay.
communication skills at like a 5, and they need to have analytical skills at like a 3. So and in dating and relationship, there are certain capacities that make you good at dating. You just think about each phase, like if you're in the beginning phase, like you don't even like, how are you going to meet someone? Are you good at starting conversations? Because if you can't start to do that, that's going to be problematic. It's or putting yourself in a context where you're going to know you're going to meet someone you're like, or your self-awareness, like who am I and who am I looking for? And then, like conflict resolution. So each of these are like a line. And then the level would be like, how good are you at that? So like, are you a
So put
master
it another
conflict resolution?
way, it's like
Yeah.
line is a subject, a skill, and a level is how effective are you at that skill, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm getting
topology aside and all this stuff aside, you also need skill sets to have a good relationship as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's super important. I mean, I think that they go together. The typology system is going to give you self-awareness on what lines you're probably good at, naturally good at, and which ones you're probably not going to be good at. So they're
Right.
not separate. It's a self-awareness tool to help you fast track to know which capacities you're naturally good at. So, like as an Enneagram 7 leaving pattern person, I'm really good at thinking, but I turned out one of the things I wasn't good at was feeling. And one of my troubles in dating for a while was that I wasn't good at feeling, and I was too intellectual. And then I learned how to feel. Like feeling's really important. It's one thing we haven't really touched upon yet, but it's really worth mentioning because this, I think, really gets into people who really have a deep, connected, intimate relationship is learning to feel deeper together. All every kid, no exception, go when they're a child makes up some feelings that they're just like, oh, I want more of that, or other feelings are like, I want to avoid that like the plague. That's why defense patterns are created, because they're trying to avoid some intense feelings. So to get back to wholeness is you want to learn to remap your feelings so you can feel everything and be in your body. When you're really rooted in your body and feeling your feelings fully, your defense patterns go off, at the highest level, not at all. That's like a realized Buddha, but like even just as you're going, it's less and less often. And you can really feel like when you're really present and feeling, and you're the whole room, like your meditation practice will be in the room, you can take information and feel things that are going on all around you. So it's one of the biggest things that I teach is how to help people feel, or even couples, how to help each other feel, because I'm telling you, like, you want to have really awesome orgasms, learn to feel deeper. A lot of times people are afraid of certain intensity levels and they start to space out right before they're having an orgasm because they have made up a program from their childhood. They don't like that intensity level, but we can be with more intensity, and you can, really good lovemaking and brings in, a deep emotional body connection. And you could be both like really, it's not just the physical rubbing the tension. It's like, oh, I'm really with somebody, and there's eye contact and you're feeling the love. That's possible for people, but that's also something that's not it's a skill. You got to develop it. And so that's that tends to happen in long-term relationships where you kind of get to know each other and build that kind of intimacy and being able to talk about different things. And it's not just about, getting each other off on a physical level. It's about like, oh my God, this person really loves me and cares about me and knows how to help me grow and evolve. And it feels, the operative word here, generative. And that's what you want, is to have a relationship that keeps growing and evolving in a way that's satisfying for both partners. And you really need really good communication skills. So that's fundamental.
Yeah.
And self-awareness leads is part of communication skills, not just self-awareness of yourself, self-awareness of your partner, and self-awareness of how people get together and how life works. When you put that all together, then relationships can really flow.
And I think if there's one thing I can take away from this podcast is you need a lot of different things for success. You don't need, but it's useful to not one tool rules them all. Enneagram,
Yeah.
attachment systems, all these different things.
Yeah, and I don't get people get overwhelmed. That's true, but look at it as an exciting journey. It's like, oh, I get to be alive, and there's so many cool different things, and each little tool makes you a better person. And if enjoy, I'm getting to share two things that are really important. Baby steps. Like if you really want to, like most people are like, I got to get there. I got to get the wife. I got to get the awesome sex. I got to, have a partner. It's like, why don't you just enjoy being alive and going through each step of it and get more intimate with what's going on with it and be like, what's going on here? What can I learn from this? Every moment is pregnant with opportunities for learning, growth, entertainment. I mean, in my story, what life is though we're all the ultimate reality. You to know what it means to be alive. And every moment we know what it's another data point about what it's to be alive. And the other thing I really want to emphasize, a really core point, which is about narrative. Our own stories really it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you want to tell yourself, even if it's not your current story, you can change your new story by short pith instruction decrees. Like some people think, like, go walk around and say, like, I'm a terrible date. I'm bad at conversation. It's like, great. Well, you're just going to read. Life's a mirror. So you want to start telling the new story, and that creates what's called a gap. So it's like you can say, like, I'm a great lover. Okay, well, then in order to fulfill that narrative, now your consciousness is like, okay, I better study these different things that make me a great lover, right? So you want to tell the story leads, because if you don't have the right story, what will happen is, let's say your story is, I'm a shit lover, then like any data point that sort of like there's like some energy drop or something goes wrong, that's just going to validate your old story, and you're going to retract, and it's like game over. It's like, okay, well, it's called a sabotage program. So picking narratives that are going to get you where you want, even if you're not fully there, you want to put the narrative first, and that'll motivate you to do the things to fully embody that narrative.
Right? Well said. Healing work is important too. I
Yeah, yeah.
feel like we talked about so many different things. We could have a podcast in every subject.
Yeah. We covered a wide ground, but yeah, happy to come
Yeah.
back and go in depth in any of them. But yeah, I would invite people. I think, yeah, the one thing I will say is, we talked about this free energy that we talked about. It's really important because there's intuition. Like my philosophy used to be best percent chance. How can I calculate the odds of succeeding? But both men and women, when you start getting off these old loops of patterns you start pausing and having more openness, you can activate your intuition, and you can be guided on which thing. And that really helps with overwhelm. Because I think right now we're in, like, there's a zillion YouTube channels, and different people, different perspectives are gonna be like, oh, my head's gonna explode. So one of the key things that I work with people is, when you get into higher energy states and more openness, then your intuition just kicks in, and it just says, like, all you got to focus on is what next. Don't get caught up in, I got all these other things. All you got is, like, get into high energy states and get into figure out what's next, and it can takes all the anxiety and overwhelm out of it. So that's a big thing as well.
Yeah. It sounds like the most important thing really is to be self-aware and know how to get yourself out of your fight or flight, your meditation, and all these tools, just self-awareness tools. It really comes back to yourself, right? How aware of yourself and your patterns in your relationships. It's not, don't use
Yeah.
these tools to fix something or anything. It's all about self-awareness and then reacting based on that.
Yeah, well, I would say self-awareness is the right word, but then self as you, but then self as you as life. Life has patterns. So it's the interface of those two, because um you want to, like, for example, you could know about you, but if you don't know the patterns of good communication, and you're only gonna go so far. So you know, Yeah, I mean, something is saying is like if I had to be like really cut through and like good communication skills are really important in relationships. Right? We talked about the three marriages. Well, we're talking about the where one is with life, one is with yourself, one is with other people. Well, when it comes with other people, you really want to have the line of really good communication, conflict resolution. Those are pretty. I mean, everyone needs that. Like, so and then when you have the archetypal knowledge of yourself, then you can learn how to communicate that. It's like, okay, well, these are my tendencies. What are your tendencies? Well, how, given your tendencies and our tendencies, how do we make that dynamic flow? Right. So, communication skills are pretty essential.
Where can people find you, John?
um, Mozenter.com, www.mozenter.com. And you'll have
All right.
links there to my all my social media stuff.
Awesome. Well, it's a pleasure to have you. Very
Yeah, pleasure to
fascinating
have you.
conversation. I love it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt. Bye,
All right.
everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. See ya.